The most recent episode of Ahsoka ended on a pretty big cliffhanger as the characters were in a dire spot in which, spoiler warning, Ahsoka was left in the world between worlds and the Eye of Sion was traveling through hyperspace to places unknown. Many have theorized as to how Hera and the crew will travel to this new galaxy that Thrawn and Ezra are seemingly stuck in. I don't think it's certain that we will be seeing our main cast travel there. However, I wanted to explore some ways in which they could perhaps cross these massive gulfs and see which sources back those theories up. This is entirely speculation, but I think it's a fun creative exercise, especially with episode 5 just 1 or 2 days away, depending on when I upload this. The first and I think perhaps most obvious route that the show could take is the use of Pergos, which we know for certain is a feasible but perhaps bit of a volatile way to travel between each galaxy. Of course, we've seen the presence of Pergos throughout CTOS with the descriptive audio even pointing to their appearance throughout several scenes. Thematically, the Pergol have been very important to Star Wars, especially in the story of Ezra. If you flash back to Star Wars Rebels, Hera describes the Pergol as a menace, something that destroys ships, a bane to spacers, and that's kind of the general reaction of the crew until they're sort of commandeered by Ezra, who uses them not only to, in the series finale, help defeat Grand Admiral Thrawn, but also in their first episode to help refuel the Ghost. There's some deep connection there, and I kind of wonder whether they'll come in when the time is right to help return Ezra from his isolation. One sort of wacky theory is that maybe we'll see someone with Force sensitivities like Ezra help connect to the Pergol, whether that's Ahsoka or perhaps our little green friend from The Mandalorian, who knows. Of course, we also do have the world between worlds, which can access several points throughout time and space, including locations on what seem to be certain Nexus planets. It's not entirely impossible that we could see the world between worlds guide Ahsoka to one of these points in the new galaxy, although this would leave Hera and the rest of the crew stuck twiddling their thumbs as everyone else sorts things out. I do think this is less likely, mostly because we have had plenty of shots establishing the presence of the New Republic's fleet. This could be a Chekhov's gun. If you're showing this massive power, presumably at some point we will see them in action. We know eventually that the New Republic and Empire will clash. I mean, that's inevitable. And maybe we'll see them fighting Thrawn in the new galaxy, but that's sort of speculation. It's just as likely, I think, that there's sort of a defensive force trying to scramble once he eventually arrives. So let's explore other methods that could establish a map and route for the rest of the fleet and for the rest of the characters. Throughout the canon continuity of Star Wars, we've seen several methods through which Force users can navigate hyperspace and even map out new routes. Of course, within the show, we've seen that the precursors to the Night Sisters were able to map out dozens of routes through the use of magic, and this is a method that Ahsoka could rely on to guide the Rebel fleet through hyperspace. In Star Wars Rebels, we've actually seen a similar, or maybe even same method used before. In the second season of the show, we find out that Zeb's people, the Lasat, did not go extinct, and more importantly, we are shown that the Lasat people are able to channel the Force to a degree and use it to map out space. That's not the last time we've seen this method used either, as the Chiss used Force-sensitive navigators known as Skywalkers to travel through hyperspace in the difficult to navigate unknown regions. In The Rise of Skywalker and Jedi Survivor, we have seen similar artifacts to the one shown in Ahsoka. These allow the characters in those stories to maneuver through hyperspace disturbances or follow a map avoiding collisions within hyperspace, accessing planets lost to time. So it's not entirely impossible for this method to work better than the use of Pergos, as it doesn't rely on animals guiding a ship through hyperspace, which I mean is obviously risky, especially for a lovely ship like the Ghost. Although this leaves out some details about fuel consumption and how far this new galaxy is. Of course, this is the reason Morgan Elsbeth spent all that time building the Eye of Sion, even going so far as to secure the use of old Super Star Destroyer engines. Although, with how inconsistent the speed of hyperspace travel is throughout several movies, shows, and books, it is entirely possible that speed is less of a factor for the Eye of Sion, and maybe it has something to do with piercing hyperspace itself, or even bringing Thrawn's derelict Republic Star Destroyer back to the galaxy. Another interesting option actually comes from the end of the episode. We see ships not only affected by the center of the Eye of Sion, but we also see that it makes a notable slash on the galaxy as it rips through into hyperspace. In Star Wars Legends, including in the Thrawn trilogy, one way that very basic hyperspace tracking was accomplished was by measuring exit vectors. The Ghost was right there, it wasn't disabled, its instrument panel was running. Perhaps they can get enough data to follow the Eye. Maybe that's even the purpose. Maybe the Eye is meant not only to travel, but to lead Thrawn's fleet back to the galaxy. Another sort of wild theory is that Sabine may have purposefully left her helmet behind to record the hyperspace information and relay it to her friends. I don't think this has a lot going for it, mostly because we don't see her helmet anywhere near the map and she took it off in the forest, or rather it was knocked off when she smacked that tree. So unless Sabine left her helmet right there off screen, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense, though I could also see that being the opening shot for episode 5. So while the exact method and whether or not the whole crew will be traveling to the new galaxy is not certain, if they do end up traveling there, they are probably going to use the Force in some way. Well, that's all I've got for now. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts on all of these theories and more, and when you think we'll find them out. Will episode 5 be completely flashback centric with Anakin and Ahsoka? If not flashbacks, maybe just the world between world, or is the actual main story going to move forward as well? Curious to hear your thoughts.